Okay. So our next section we're going to do here is about Hitler and Germany. Hitler's rise to power in Germany. And let's start off with a brief history of Hitler. Hitler was born in Austria. Now we know that Austrians, a large part of Austria, are made up of Germans. So although he wasn't even born in the country of Germany proper, because he was of German ancestry from Austria, it opened the door for him to become popular enough to be elected leader of Germany. Not given the leadership of Germany, his party was the majority party of Germany in the 1930s. Um, Interesting, though, that the guy wasn't even born in Germany. By all accounts, he was a failure in secondary school, and he ends up moving to Vienna in 1907 at what is the age of 18 to be an artist. Vienna, Austria. Okay. World War I breaks out, and now we have a Hitler in his 20s, and he serves in World War I on the German side, and by all accounts, he's a really good soldier. Interesting side note there about his experience in World War I. If you remember, poison gas was commonly used in the trenches of World War I, and oftentimes the soldiers would be asked to put on a gas mask. So, this old story goes that he had to trim down his mustache so the gas mask would be snug and tight on his face. So if the enemy had launched poison gas into the trenches, and it had gotten in there, his face would have the gas mask would have worked, right? Where if he had a mustache, and you can see down here in this picture of Hitler. This first picture is him with his old stash, and I'm gonna enlarge this picture. I believe that this is him as a World War I soldier before he gets deployed to the trenches. So look at that big old mustache. You can imagine that if you're putting on a gas mask and your mustache that's a big mustache, right? That's not a little guy or a tight, thin mustache. He had a big one that kind of almost, I don't want to say it goes out, but um, and he had to trim it down for the gas masks. And then I don't think this is a picture of him immediately following. I do have some pictures of Hitler down here. As a younger man, this is Hitler in 1923, after the war, but you can see he has the Hitler stash going on. Then I don't really have a World War I picture of him with little stash, but the story I've heard now is that he got that mustache because of the gas attacks. And again, he's a really good soldier, right? So in 1919, he goes to Munich, Germany now. Now, here's an interesting thing about Munich. Munich is in southern Germany, and it's a Catholic area of Germany. During the pre-1871 period, it was part of the German Confederation of States. It was not Prussia. And it was the Catholic part of the German Confederation of States, not the Protestant part in the north. Prussia, of course, was Protestant, and so were the northern German states. So here we have Hitler going to a part of Germany. Okay, quickly, Austria is also Catholic. So you can kind of see here how Munich would be a good place for him, because it's more culturally similar to Austria than, say, in the northern parts of Germany, or especially in the northeastern parts of Germany that used to be Prussia. So he joins the German Workers' Party in Munich. By 1921, he had taken control of the party, and the party had been renamed the Nazi Party. In 1923, Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, tries an uprising against the government called the Beer Hall Putsch. This fails and he goes to jail. And I think it's important to stop and talk about this for a second, because this isn't like it sounds. I think when I was a younger kid, I hear this, and to me it sounds like a bunch of guys at the bar who like, let's have an uprising, right? And no, this was an organized thing. Now, I think that they used to meet at a beer hall, at a bar. Um, but it wasn't like one day they decide, because maybe they've had one too many beers, that they're going to have an uprising and it doesn't work. And this is a nothing. This was a big event. This was organized. There were a lot of people involved in this, and there was bloodshed. This was a violent uprising. This was not a bunch of beer drinkers who had too much to drink one day deciding to have an uprising. While in jail, Hitler writes his book called Mein Kampf, or My Struggle. I've also heard it called My Fight. A lot of the things that's interesting about this, of course, like so much of our history, is that translation is key, right? So I've heard My Struggle. I believe it says My Struggle, but some people call it My Fight. The translation between German and English can be dicey, okay? So sometimes you have a message that, well, the reason that I bring this up, and it's kind of a weird connection, and I don't know what it means, okay? But the word jihad, which was a word that was used to describe the terrorist attacks on our country on September 11, 2001, has also been translated to mean my struggle, or a struggle. What does that mean? If, in fact, they both are the words my struggle, if Hitler had a struggle and the terrorist jihadis who attacked our country also used that similar phrase, so now it's almost like this sense of victimhood. Oh, it's so hard on me. I'm struggling so bad right now. I need, I don't know. I don't know what that means. What do you think it means? Well, anyways, while in prison, he writes his book called Mein Kampf. And the book links up social Darwinism, anti-Semitism, and German pride. He growing up in Vienna, or when he moves to Vienna, okay? Vienna is the capital city of Austria. It's a big city, and there's a lot of Jewish people there, okay? And I believe that this is where he claims in his book, Mein Kampf, I spelled it wrong, didn't I? Maybe I did, I don't know, that this is where he learns to hate Jewish people, is in Vienna, because there are so many Jewish people. So now I'm going to assume that the city he grew up in Austria was a small village or a smaller town and didn't have a lot of Jewish people. And now he goes to the big city where there are a lot of Jewish people. Oftentimes, big cities are more accepting of minority groups, of the other, the smaller minority. We live in a big city. We're LA people, and we know that everyone lives here together, right? That we have this culture where doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what you look like. We're all just Los Angelinos, right? And we have tons of different languages spoke here, different religions, different beliefs, different cultural values, and a lot of people, and including myself, I'm not a big fan of giving my opinion in this class, but I like the diversity of cities. I think it's great. To learn from, to be around people who have a different background than I do. So in Vienna, we have a very similar big city situation where there's more acceptance, there's more minority groups, and this was where he supposedly learned his anti-Semitism, his deep hatred towards Jewish people, okay? He also clings on to the idea of social Darwinism. He believes that the Germans are the best. The Germans are the best people. We're going to find out later that he pushes lies, or maybe it's his propaganda minister, that the Germans were connected to the great cult civilization that existed before the Romans, before the Greeks, called the Aryans. And the word Aryan has kind of been, it's a loaded word. It's been warped and twisted over the centuries, over the millennia. And today, oftentimes, it's associated with white racist groups, with white supremacists. And but in reality, the historic Aryans were a group of people who were around before the Greeks, were around before the Romans, were thought to have been from northern Iran, from Armenia, from northeastern Turkey, from the southern Caucasus region, and then from there they spread into India, also into Greece, and into Eastern Europe. We know this through language connections and through tools that were found over this period. So he's going to kind of cling on to that and say Germans have been great since forever. He also then is going to say, look, now here's another story for you. Around the year 720 something, there was a guy named Charles the Hammer Martel, who was a Frenchman who stopped the Muslim advance from Spain into France. Okay, his grandson's a guy named Charlemagne, who's this great king, and he expands this empire from France into what's modern day Germany and also into northern Italy, including Rome, where the Catholic Church is centered. He calls this the Holy Roman Empire. And Hitler, so then after Charlemagne dies, he leaves his empire to his two sons, right? And the French side of the empire is not as strong. It kind of fails. But his son on the eastern half of his empire, the eastern half, is going to create a strong empire that's going to last, okay? And honestly, the Holy Roman Empire lasts all the way until the 1600s. Okay, it's centered in Austria. It's really a powerful empire. Now, it shrunk up. It was not as big as it once was in the 800s or 900s or even thousands. But anyways, Hitler's going to say this was a claim of German pride. So he's starting to make this case that Germans are the best, right? That Germans are the best people in the history of the world. That he even goes as far, and this is where it gets like really make-believe, to say like, oh, did you know that the Germans went to Egypt and taught the Egyptians how to build pyramids? There's no proof of that. The Germans also went to Mexico and taught the early Maya and then, those Mesoamerican civilizations how to build pyramids. No, again, no proof. He's trying to create this image that's going to support his belief, or the beliefs that he's going to push on his citizenry, that the Germans are the best. They've always been the best. And that right now what's happening to Germany, and we're going to get there, in the late 1920s, early 1930s, during the time of the Great Depression, when Germany gets incredibly poor again because America is poor and they can no longer support Germany, that this is all kind of holding down the greatest people that have ever lived. He also then says that there was another period of German greatness, which was the period during the German unifications of 1871, when Germany does come in and defeat France. And arguably, Germany is the most powerful country in the world. From 1870 to call it World War I, Germany was an incredibly powerful and advanced and culturally significant country during this period. Scientifically, artistically, they were a great country during this period. And then after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles kind of hurts Germany. It pushes Germany down. And this is going to lead to that moment then when the Germans are going to they're gonna elect Hitler, kind of. I'll explain. So he realizes now, after the Beer Hall Push, that he has to gain power through politics, right, and not through. He's not going to be powerful enough to just take over Germany. So after prison, he expands the Nazi Party. And by 1932, it had become the biggest party in Germany. Germany was in the middle of a Great Depression, was very poor. He promised to save Germany, bring it back to its historic um, wonderfulness. And I want to take a second now to look at something. Give me a second. So something I think is really important to remember is that Hitler and the Nazi Party were elected into power. In Europe, their political system is called a parliamentary system. And that's a system where there's not just two political parties. Take a look. This is the election of 1928. This is before the Great Depression. And these are all the political parties in Germany who received votes, okay? And if you look, here's the Nazi Party. They were the ninth party, I think, who got 800,000 votes. They got a total of 12 seats in the German Reichstag, which is like their parliament or Congress, okay? This is before the Great Depression. So Social Democrats, these people are more powerful. And in a parliamentary system, it's super rare for one party to get 50% of the vote. So what happens is that they form coalitions with other parties, which force them to work together to form 50%. So then now we can have a ruling coalition. Some argue that this is a flaw with our two-party system, is that we have these two opposite sides who don't need to work together, right? Where in this case, right, this guy's got 30%, 14, 12, 10. Well, look, I'm going to join up with these two here. This one's maybe against me. And together we're going to form a party of 22 plus 30, 52%, right? This is how parliamentary systems work. And it still exists today. Germany and Europe, Israel, a lot of countries around the world today have parliamentary systems. And like I said, some consider them to be better than the two-party system we have in our country, the two-party kind of electoral system we have. I don't have an opinion on it, or I do, but I'm not going to share it. So they don't get a lot of votes. Now in 1930, the Great Depression just happened. It started in America. America stopped giving Germany money, and Germany is starting to get poor. And you can see that Hitler's Nazi Party is now going to get the second most votes, okay? With 18%. But they don't form a ruling coalition. Other parties have more votes, and it's up to them to form a ruling coalition, and they do. And they rule. In 1932, there's another election. Now, 32 is like the depths of the Great Depression. This is when the Great Depression is at its very, very worst and very, very lowest. And we're going to see that the Nazi Party has now gotten the most votes. 37% of the votes. If you've been paying attention, this is the highest percent that we've seen in any of these parliamentary elections. And Hitler is the ruler of the Nazi Party. So if you choose the Nazi Party, the guy who's going to rule is Hitler. So this is why we say Hitler was voted in. Again, not in a two-party electoral system where 50% rules the show, or 50% of the electoral college vote. I don't want to get into that conversation either. But look, his party gets the most votes, and as leader, he is now going to be the ruler of the Reichstag. There's another election in November where he actually loses a few votes, loses 34 seats. He only gets 33% of the vote. And then finally in 1933, his party, that's not what I wanted. Let me find the 1933 election for you. In 1933, his Nazi party is going to get even more votes, gain 92 seats. This time they're looking at 44% of the vote. This is an enormous victory in a parliamentary system of government. Okay, and at this point, Hitler is. I mean, look at the second group has 18%. He could form a coalition with the Struggle Front. Struggle, Mein Kampf. Is there a connection? I don't know. This is a massive, massive electoral victory. Okay. And now we're seeing that. All right, so I want to bring this up also. Why did he get such a massive percent of the vote in 1933? Well, A month before the elections, there was a fire at the Reichstag, which is like their Congress building. It's the capital. The capital would be for us. Um, and it scared people. Now, how this fire started and who started this fire is a subject of debate. Some people think that the Nazis started the fire to scare the German people to make them vote for Hitler. That Hitler, in fact, ordered an attack on his capital, Congress, Reichstag, where the representatives meet, by his followers. And that after this attack on the capital, on the Reichstag, that people were scared and they ran to him. And he got the 44% vote that we're going to see. Look at the date, okay? February 27th. And the election now is going to be March 5th. This is 2 weeks later. So is it possible that Hitler and his followers, this wasn't done in broad daylight. This was done in the middle of the night. They attacked and set fire to it, and then they ran away. So we don't know who did it, right? It's not like they were out there posing for cameras. But I think historians suggest that he could have been behind it, and the Nazis could have been behind it as a way to consolidate power. Either way, in 1933, the Nazis and Hitler, so then Hitler then is going to go to the German leader or part of leadership, not of the Reichstag, but outside leadership, and say, listen, I should be called chancellor. I should be the leader. And they agree. They give it to him. The German leadership says, yeah, sure. You know what? We'll let you be chancellor. We'll let you be not only the leader of Congress or the Reichstag, but also now leader of Germany, symbolic leader, leader in name. But this is going to be just the amount of power he needs to start doing what he wants to do. And this is the beginning of Hitler's reign of power, which will last until the end of World War II.